Good Monday, everybody. David Howell with John Knox Presbyterian Church. I hope you're all safe and well. Today, in this age, it is a time where I think most of us are a little bit testy. We're tired of being locked up in our homes from the pandemic, not knowing when we can go out to eat or do the normal things of life, or if we should wear a mask or not wear a mask. We're testy over political issues as we hear politicians fuss and fight, and people throw rocks at one another. We're testy over social issues as we deal with racial injustice in the world. We're so pent up with anger as we deal with the pending elections instead of trying to find the true candidate that maybe represents an avenue that can help the most people. We're dividing up into our camps and wanting to cast judgment on one another. When we get in these tense times, I think judgment is so easy for most of us. It is for me. We are so quick to want God to condemn other people, God to prove us right and the other person wrong, as I said in an earlier lesson. And we're so slow to remember that God sent his son into the world to save the world, for forgiveness of sins, to show God's grace and mercy to all of us, that we all fall short. But thanks be to God that those who have that great gift of faith in Jesus Christ are forgiven. And so this reminded me of a story in Scripture from John chapter 8. This is a text that is not in some of the earliest transcripts, but is one of my favorite examples of the power of Jesus Christ to come into the world to forgive sins, but also his great love and mercy for all of us, and that transformation that we can have when we come to God and seek his peace and his grace for all of God's children instead of his condemnation and judgment. We're going to begin with verse 2 of chapter 8 of John's Gospel. Early in the morning, he, being Jesus, came again to the temple. All the people came to him, and he sat down and began to teach them. The scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery, and making her stand before all of them, they said to him, Teacher, this woman was caught in the very act of committing adultery. Now in the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. Now what do you say? They said this to test him, so that they might have some charge to bring against him. Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, Let anyone among you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her. And once again he bent down and wrote on the ground. When they heard it, they went away one by one, beginning with the elders, and Jesus was left alone with the woman standing before him. Jesus straightened up and said to her, Woman, where are they? Has no one come to condemn you? She said, No one, sir. And Jesus said, Neither do I condemn you. Go your way, and from now on, do not sin again. All these people gathered around that woman to condemn him, to condemn her, to have her stoned, to test Jesus, to see whether or not he was to obey the letter of the law of Moses that said she should be stoned for the sin of adultery. But Jesus challenged and tested them as he often did. He said, Okay, the first one of you who has no sin in your life, come forward and throw your rock. And he continued to stoop down and write on the ground a few times. I always wondered what he was writing. I always wondered if he was actually writing out some of the sins of the very ones who said that they were superior to this woman caught in adultery. He was writing down the very transgressions that they had made in life and the mistakes that they had made. And one by one, they came forward and dropped their stones and walked away. They couldn't ask for God to condemn this woman because they realized they too were just as guilty. And Jesus, in his great power, then tells the woman that she's forgiven. He's the Son of God. He can show that grace and mercy. But then he challenges her and commands her, Go and sin no more. It's not you're forgiven and go live the life that you were living before, but take that act of grace by God and live a new transformed life where sin is not part of who you are. So, two great lessons here. One, challenging us not to judge others, because if we look in the mirror, sometimes we find that we're guilty as well. And two, teaching us about the great love and grace and mercy that we have through Jesus Christ. So live into that love, live into that forgiveness, and be a transformed person in the image of Christ who saves us. Peace be with you all, and have a good day.